Hello, welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Sriya and I'm delighted to be talking to Professor Sue Black about tech and its career options. Professor Sue Black is an award-winning computer scientist, technology evangelist and digital skills expert currently working at Durham University. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 to Girls in ICT Day 2022. And if you're interested in learning more about the objectives of Talking Tech, I'll be discussing those at the end of this discussion. So thank you so much, Sue, for making time for this conversation today. I'm really looking forward to it.
You're very welcome.
Great. So although you've had a different start to your career, not a normal one, you didn't go straight into university after school, you've been able to do so much. You are a government advisor, thought leader, trustee at Comic Relief, social entrepreneur, writer, public speaker, computer scientist, of course. You set up Bcs Women and you led the campaign to save Bletchley Park in 2008. And those two I'd really like to discuss further. So for Bletchley Park, for those who aren't aware, what is Bletchley Park and what's the significance of it?
So Bletchley Park is a place where the code breakers worked in the UK during the Second World War, and I didn't really know much about it. So I think it was 2003 the first time I went there, and I was there because I was chairing BCS Women, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So I was the chair of BCS Women. I got invited up to this meeting at Bletchley Park, and I can remember getting on the train, and like on the train there, I was thinking, so what do I know about Bletchley Park? And all I really knew was that the code breakers worked there during the Second World War. And in my head, they were probably about 50 old blokes kind of wearing tweed jackets and smoking pipes and doing the Times crossword and maybe a bit of code breaking on the side. So I don't know where that image comes from, but I've spoken to other people that have got the same image in their head, so I'm not sure. And so that was it, really. I just thought, well, there's some code breakers worked there a long time ago. That's about it. So I went to the meeting and then afterwards went for a walk around the site because it's, I think, 26-acre site now. And there's lots of different buildings there. And I walked into one building and there were these guys who were sort of tinkering away with this sort of strange contraption, this sort of feat of engineering. I couldn't work out what it was. I hadn't seen anything like it before. So I started chatting to them and, asked them what they were doing. And they said, oh, they were rebuilding Alan Turing's bomb machine. So that's bomb with an E on the end. And that was a machine which was used to industrialize the code breaking process. So they were breaking the codes every day, and doing it kind of pen and paper or pencil and paper. But the idea was to, create it into an industry by putting together these machines that would kind of crank through all the possible alternative solutions to the code that day. And then hopefully at some point during the day, come up with an answer where, was able to crack the code for that day. And then they could read all the messages that had been sent that day. So told me all about this. So I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know anything about all of these. I still was like, how many people worked here during the war? And sorry for the dog barking in the background, if you can hear it. And I said, that's amazing. How many people worked here during the Second World War? And he said more than 10,000. So I was completely blown away by that. And also I told him that I was there representing this group of women in computing. And he said that more than 50% of the people that worked there were women. So I was, again, completely blown away that more than 5,000 women worked there.
That is something that I was completely shocked about as well, that I found out really recently. So I had heard of Bletchley Park in school, and all I knew about it was that it was where code breaking happened for the war, but it was totally top secret. And their contributions weren't recognized until about the 90s, I believe, until a book was written about it. But I had no idea that over half the women who worked there were
half the people
who worked there were women.
No, same here. And I just thought, how can I not have known that 5,000 women worked here? That's the sort of thing I would love to know, right? So then I managed to get some funding to run an oral history project, so to interview some of the women that had worked there as code breakers. and like machine operators to get their stories, because their stories just weren't out there anywhere. And so managed to do that, recorded about 15 women talking about their experience there. And then at the launch of that meeting, the meeting to kind of like celebrate the oral history, the director of Bletchley Park was talking about Bletchley Park, and he said that they were having serious financial difficulties and he was really worried that they'd have to close. And so I thought, well, that's terrible, you know, that's not good. And then not so long after that, I got invited up to Bletchley Park to a reception, and for the first time I did a proper tour all around the site with one of the people that had actually worked there during World War II, telling us about all these amazing code-breaking achievements. It really was. And you know, some by people like Mavis Beatty, who I think was like 18, an 18-year-old woman working there. So just some incredible stories. And then at the end of the tour, we were stood looking at Hut 6, which is the hut that back then looked like it was falling down and had like a blue tarpaulin over the end to keep out the rain. And so I stood there looking at the hut, and the guy that took us around was saying, you know, and this place is said to have shortened World War II by 2 years, and at that point 11 million people a year were dying. So I just stood there and thought, so this place saved 22 million lives, and it might,
and no one knows about it.
and no one knows about it, right? And so I just thought, I've got to do something about it. So that's how the campaign started. I didn't really realize what was going to happen then, but I just thought, I've got to do something about this. And by then in my career, I was head of a computer science department at University of Westminster. So I was on this email list for all the heads and professors of computing in the country. So I emailed all of them with a photo of the hut. There was a petition on the government 10 Downing Street website. Someone else had put up saying we must save Bletchley Park. And so I sent around a link to the petition and asked everyone to sign it. And it was one of those petitions where you can see the names of people who've signed it. So I had a look at the petition a few hours after I'd sent the email around and saw like all these really famous professors of computer science from the UK
Amazing.
who like wrote the textbooks that I studied, you know, when I was an undergraduate.
Wow, it must have been so lovely to see like so many people caring about something that you like felt so passionately about, and seeing that support.
Yeah, no, it was really good, and it really gave me the confidence to, okay, it's not just me that thinks this, you know, lots of other people that I really respect think the same. So yeah, so that was the start of the campaign. With a colleague at work, we wrote a letter to go in the Times newspaper, and I then contacted all the journalists that I knew. It was about 3 or 4, wasn't very many, but luckily one of them was Rory Keflin-Jones at the BBC, and so he invited me up to Bletchley Park the week after and recorded me like for TV and radio at Bletchley Park saying, I'm ashamed to be British, why don't we look after our heritage, all that sort of thing. And then I think I got about 200 emails the day that went live, like on the BBC website, because it was in the Times newspaper. A letter was in the Times, and I was on the Today programme on Radio 4 in the morning, and was on the BBC News as well the same day. And so I got loads of emails from people who are connected up to Bletchley Park. And, you know, that was really, really exciting. But then a few months later, nothing had really happened. So I was getting, you know, like, I was just wondering, well, what on earth can I do? You know, I don't know how to run a campaign. I just kind of done what was kind of in front of me, and I wasn't sure what to do next. And it wasn't until a few months later that I started using Twitter. So it was back in 2008 that I kind of realized, oh, hang on, I can just type Bletchley Park into the search box in Twitter and find people all over the world that are talking about Bletchley Park.
Yeah.
So that was a real sort of light bulb moment for me, just in terms of thinking, okay, so if I want to reach lots of people and have a chat with them, I can do that through Twitter. I don't see how I would have been able to do that before social media.
Social media like just provides us this amazing like kind of playing field where you can, it's just an area for free speech. So it's the perfect way to like get grounded in like what you believe in and like find people who have the same opinions. Absolutely. So and 2008 is quite an early time to be using Twitter. And like it was around at the perfect time of your campaign. Like that's what snowballed it, as I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, the campaign took 3 years in the end. So when I started, I thought, oh, you know, I'll just kind of do this thing. It'll be a few weeks and it will be sorted. But in the end, it was 3 years. And Twitter made a massive difference because, you know, you can connect to people and have almost real-time conversations with them quite a lot of the time, and point them to other stuff which is important, you know, and get them to support things that you both care about. And just the fact that you can find people around the world just through a hashtag is just incredible, you know.
Yeah,
like
it really is.
before Twitter we couldn't do that. There was no way to do that. So you know, you would have needed to have those connections to people already. You wouldn't be able to find them. So you know, I think that was just a massive sort of revolution in the way that we communicate across the world, really. Yeah, and it was one of the first uses of Twitter or social media to campaign in that sort of way.
Amazing. So cool. I love that it was something that you just saw and you kind of just started a petition and you weren't aware of how far it could go. And once you gained traction, like, and things started building up, that's when it became like a campaign. And it sounds like it was very natural and just like it just kind of happened. I'm so glad it did. But it's
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, it's
all.
such an interesting story like that. It was totally something that you went into just because you were passionate about, and completely in the dark. I really love that part of the whole campaign. But one thing that does shock me about Bletchley Park, it's just how secret, how much of a secret everything was. And like, I read some of the interviews that you did of the women who worked there, and they were saying how they were just given like a telegram that said, come to this location, you'll be picked up, you'll be taken, you do the work, and then like you will be taken somewhere else. There was like no like details about what they would do. So they were doing this amazing work without having any idea what it was for. And then
it's incredible. And like, you know, so I got to know some of the people that worked there. And so Jean Valentine, for example, who was one of the bomb operators, she said that I think she thinks her headmaster from school recommended her to someone. And so I think she just got a letter asking if she would, you know, like work for the government or something.
Yeah, people were selected, right? Based on whether they were good at coding, good at solving puzzles.
Cryptic crosswords and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And so she just knew that she lived in Scotland. She had to get a train from Scotland. It was the first time she'd ever been away from home on her own. And she got the train down to Bletchley, and that's all she knew. She didn't even know where the building was or anything. And so she arrived at Bletchley railway station and went over to the guy that was standing there, the station master or something, and said, oh, I've been told to come here. And he just basically showed her where to go to get to Bletchley Park, which is just over the road, so it's not a long way. And she went in and was taken into an office straight away, where there was a man sitting behind a desk and like a soldier with a gun in his hand, kind of standing in the background, and I asked to sign the Official Secrets Act. And she wasn't told anything about what she was going to do, just that it was for the country or for the government. I can't remember exactly what she said. And so she signed up and signed the Official Secrets Act, not knowing what she was going to do at all. It's kind of, it sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
Really,
but it's honestly real life. And it was that happened to 10,000 people there and elsewhere as well, I'm sure.
Amazing.
And they all kept it secret, not only through the war, but then afterwards, until they were told that they were allowed to talk about it. And there's stories of married couples who, on the day that the Ministry of Defence sent a letter to everybody that had worked there saying, you can now talk about this and these things, both got a letter that day and kind of picked them up and opened them at the breakfast table because they didn't know what it was. And it was saying that they're now allowed to tell people that they worked at Bletchley Park. And so they'd been married for I don't know, say 40 years or something. And they'd never spoken to each other about it at all, despite being married for all that time. And so, everyone did take it so seriously. But, I guess lives were at stake, right? And that was really drummed into people.
Yeah, I think I understand the secrecy behind it, but I think it just surprises me how much of it there was, I think.
Yeah, how successful it was.
And it's just crazy to me that it's just another massive contribution to computer science. And majority of them were women who did it. And it always makes me think about, people, so the women at Bletchley Park, Ada Lovelace, then Grace Hopper. It makes me think about if there are other women in history whose contributions haven't been discovered yet and whether we'll discover them or not. yeah, it's just
absolutely. Well, there are so many stories. I was just on a call with some friends in the States, and one of them was talking about Van Gogh's sister-in-law. So it's not computer science, but apparently Van Gogh's brother's wife was the person that actually kind of created a market for Van Gogh's art and actually
really
made all of that happen. Yeah. And, you know, I know from reading books about Einstein years ago, his wife had the same PhD as him, and I think she checked all of his papers before he published them and stuff. And so I think there's loads and loads and loads of women who we'll probably never know about, who've made major contributions in so many different ways. But it's great, you know, like, so Ada Lovelace, when I was doing my degree, I don't think I'd heard of Ada Lovelace. And, you know, it's great that she's now championed in so many ways, and having Ada Lovelace Day. And that, you know, that's down to various individuals trying to make sure that the voices from the past kind of get heard and the things that happen. So, you know, Sue Charman Anderson spent so much energy to kind of get Ada on the map and set up Ada Lovelace Day. And, you know, there are so many people that have just kind of like made it their kind of like role in life to champion particular women or particular achievements, so that we all get to know, you know, like Hidden Figures in the US, so that we all get to know the stories. And it's just so important to know that those women were there, you know, and what they were doing.
100%. Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Ada Lovelace, so it was Ada Lovelace Day on Saturday, and I think when I had heard of Ada Lovelace because it was discussed enough school, and you know they said we knew about Ada Lovelace Day, but it wasn't really clear what her contributions were. I did a bit of reading up on her, like when I first got into software and everything, and I think what surprises me is that Ada Lovelace, so she was taught maths and like STEM and kind of physics from a very young age. She was kind of not pushed into that, but kind of embraced by that. Well, because I think her dad, Lord Byron, was a poet, so she was kind of swayed in that direction. And I'm guessing that must have had a massive impact on her making the discoveries that she did. But then it also makes me think that, do you think that that is like something that's key to maybe encouraging girls and women to enter STEM and tech, is that to introduce maths and those kind of subjects at a younger age?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we should really all know the name of Ada Lovelace's mum, right? Because she brought Ada Lovelace up, I think, as a single parent. I think, you know, Lord Byron was famous and her dad, but I don't think he did anything. I think he only met Ada Lovelace once when she was a baby.
Yeah, I think it was a very short. She was just his daughter from a very short marriage, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, and so it was his mum, because I think, wasn't Lord Byron the one that was mad, bad and dangerous to know? So you can see why she maybe didn't want too much influence from him. But yeah, I think so she really wanted to get away from the kind of I guess poetry and sort of flamboyance, I guess, and more towards kind of solid stuff like maths and physics, and really encouraged Ada in that. And she obviously did extremely well, you know, coming up with the ideas that she did. And, you know, the fact that she met up with Charles Babbage and started working with him, you know, and then came up with ideas on how to use the machines that he'd invented. It's just such an interesting story. And I'm just so delighted that we now are really starting to, you know, like more people are starting to know about Ada Lovelace and what she did. You know, like when I was doing my degree, again, you know, it's a while ago, but so I only knew about Charles Babbage. I didn't know about Ada Lovelace until I came across something about her.
That's so interesting, because there's so much evidence that shows that they collaborated. It wasn't as though Ada Lovelace was Babbage's assistant. They like worked together as like was more or less partners. So interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so unusual at that time. But I just think, you know, if you give women the opportunities, then, you know, they'll get on and do great things. But, you know, I think, well, most of human history, women have been held back for various reasons. And you can see, like, you know, going back a very long time, if women are, you know, having babies, they're going to be, and we haven't got any contraception, they're going to be preoccupied a lot of the time. But, you know, we live in a different world now. And I think we have to think differently about our roles in society. And you know, I'm a massive proponent of the fact that we need diverse teams of people with all different sorts of experience coming together to be able to solve the challenges in the world. And you know, any one group is going to find it harder than if we've got people from different backgrounds with different experiences. Of course, you know, to me, it just seems obvious that that's going to make it easier to solve problems that are out there.
Definitely agree with what you're saying. I think like a diverse team just brings about so many opinions that you or one person on their own would just never be able to see. And the scope of that is just amazing. And when you combine that with technology and how powerful it can be, and if you use it for the right reasons, it can go extremely far. I noticed that you have a podcast called Moments That Rocked Computer Science. So I was wondering if you had any. What's your favorite moment?
Well, I mean, you know, I just think the creation of software, the idea of software by Ada Lovelace. So we had
really, that's your favorite?
Yeah, well, we had to. If you listen to episode 2, it's Anne-Marie Maffedon who's.
I listened to it.
yeah. So, and I'm so delighted she's going to be the maths person on Countdown soon, because Rachel Riley's having a baby. So I've known Anne-Marie for about 10 years now. So yeah, she's wonderful. And you know, like also Ada Lovelace came up with the idea of software, and you know, that's pretty fundamental, I'd say, to computer science. And yeah, I mean, I think that's my favorite moment, really. But yeah, the podcast is 100 Moments that Rock Computer Science. So we've only done 6. We're just putting together the schedule for series 2, and we've got some great people coming on there, like Jimmy Wales, who started Wikipedia, and Dame Stephanie Shirley, amazing UK tech pioneer who we should have all kind of grown up knowing about, Steve Shirley, and it's ridiculous that we didn't, you know. See her company, you know, created software like the Concorde black box flight recorder, and it was like 300 women working in one of the world's first software houses set up by Steve Shirley, and mainly working from home. Some of them were kids kind of coding from home, and that's in the 1970s and 1960s.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's like a real worldwide kind of tech pioneer, really. And so it's kind of annoying that we don't you know, that we don't learn about her at school.
Absolutely.
Now we do, but everyone should know her name. You know, she's just an incredible person, and now a major philanthropist as well, giving money to all different sorts of projects, and just an incredible person.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point, because so much, although there is more coverage on the contributions that women have had to technology and computer science, like in my opinion, there's still nowhere near enough, and there's so many people who should be role models, but they're just left out. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that more female role models should be introduced into education, or how do you think we can encourage like a tech based career from an earlier age? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think really we have to change our whole education system. So that's maybe a conversation for another day. But I kind of feel like, you know, what we do in school. So I've got 4 kids. So my youngest is 17, so she's just doing A-levels. And, you know, pretty much what I studied at school hasn't changed that much to others, so what my parents studied at school, so that'd been back in the 1950s, to then what I studied at school, and what my older kids studied, so they're in their 30s, to what my 17-year-old has studied, is pretty similar. Like and that just does not make sense to me. You know, like there's been such a massive, so many different massive changes in the world since then. And education hasn't really changed that much at all. You know, we've still got the same basic subjects. Now we've got more subjects now, but the same basic subjects. We're still doing exams at 16, exams at 18, which is exactly as it was, you know, like 60 or 70 years ago. And, you know, why aren't we thinking hard about how everyone these days needs to understand technology to some degree, and we should be teaching stuff from when kids are little, that how to use technology, but also how to create technology. And, you know, like I love being involved in things like hackathons. I was judged for one recently, the Teens in AI hackathon, and I just love seeing the ideas that kids come up with if they've got some kind of you know, they might have 3 days to be able to create an app, right? And so, well, why aren't we doing these things actually in school as part of the curriculum, helping kids to come up with ideas and learn how to create apps and create websites and connect with each other in different ways and solve problems around the world? Because I think, you know, again, going back to sort of diversity, the more that we're all educated to understand how to create tech, but also how to connect in different ways with people all around the world to solve the world's problems, I think we could solve them. You know, we can connect together now, we can find each other. If we've got that kind of tech education as well, and some understanding of the best way to connect with people, to solve problems, what the issues are, you know, I think we could change the world quite quickly to be a much nicer place to live in for so many people. And yet the education system is still like it was before we had the internet. It just seems crazy to me.
It is quite shocking when you think about how quickly technology progresses and advances, and especially with social media and like the level of connectivity that we have to each other today. The fact that has had a complete change in our society and our mindset and the way we operate. So it's strange that although everything around education has changed, that's the only thing that hasn't. Yeah, I think that is a very, very good point. I didn't realize that actually. So moving on, the last thing that I wanted to discuss properly with you was BCS Women. Yeah. So BCS Women is a women's network for women who have a career in technology, and it was the first one to be set up in the UK, I believe. You set it up in 2001, and why do you think it took so long for a women's network to be set up? Because 2001 is quite late, considering how much contribution women have had to computer science and how involved they've been. Why do you think it took so long?
Well, it was, so it was the UK's first online network. So I think it was, if we hadn't had the internet, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I guess that's partly why I did it when I did. But I mean, so back then, in the 1990s, I was a PhD student, and you know, I hadn't really thought about the fact that I was a woman in tech. That wasn't really a phrase that people said back then at all. And so, you know, I left school at 16, then went to college at 26, I think, and then uni at 27, studied computer science. And so, like, you know, by the time I was in a computer science like degree class, I was a 27-year-old woman with a single parent with 3 small children. And most of the people in my class were like 18-year-old boys who just left home. And there was absolutely, it was great. You know, I had a great time, made lots of friends, absolutely loved it. And I didn't really think about, you know, I was a woman and they were all blokes. It just didn't really occur to me. So that just felt quite normal to me, and I didn't really think about it. And then when I started doing my PhD in the 90s, I was encouraged by my supervisor to go to conferences and network, and I was really, really shy. And so, you know, just the word networking made me feel ill, which like it's actually my favorite thing to do now, because how it seems to me now, it's quite funny, like 30 years later or whatever, is that to me, it's like you go to an event, there's other people there that you could be friends with. So you go in and chat to people and hang out with the people that are your new friends, you know, so it's a fun thing to do. Whereas back then I was kind of horrified. I've got to go and talk to people I don't know. And what am I going to say to them? So the first conference I went to, I set myself a target of talking to one person I didn't know, because to me that was a massive challenge. And so there was a guy on stage that gave a sort of funny, down-to-earth talk. And so I thought, well, he seems all right, I'll go and chat to him. So I chatted to him in the break about my research. And then after the break finished, for the rest of the conference, every time I turned around, he was staring at me, and I got really freaked out by the fact that he was staring at me, and I had absolutely no clue why he was staring at me. I thought I'd done something wrong, or I just couldn't work it out at all. And so it kind of scared me. And then I had some other experiences where I tried to chat to people at conferences, which were always men, but I just didn't think about the fact that they were men. And I just really didn't have great, you know, sometimes it was fine, but other times it wasn't. And I just thought, I'm so rubbish at networking. I hate it. And then I got invited to this Women in Science conference in Brussels. So it's probably a couple of years later. And I remember walking into the conference thinking, oh no, I'm rubbish at networking, but here I am again, kind of thing. Went in and got my badge from registration, and then got a cup of tea and went over to stand at one of those standing tables. And I think there was a couple of women there. And so, you know, I might have just said hello. But I didn't really say that much, but somehow I was in conversations for the whole next 2 days with all different sorts of people who were all talking to each other. And, you know, I met friends then in 1998 that I've still got today, because it was just so much fun. And there wasn't any issues around going up and talking to people, because it just felt like everyone was talking to everyone. And it really helped me to realize that if you're in the majority, life is just easier. You know, so being in a majority sort of women in STEM conference, I could just go and chat to people, or people would just chat to me. Whereas at a sort of more traditional academic computer science conference, it really didn't work like that. And it was a real revelation. So I came back from then in 98 and set up London BCS Women. So I set up a group for BCS women in the British Computer Society in London, first of all. And that was an amazing success straight away, putting all these women in touch with each other. And then I got so many people asking me if they could join from all over the country that I then basically set up what is BCS Women now, which is, you know, for anyone in the UK, I think, and overseas as well. You know, any women that kind of love tech, really, that are members of the British Computer Society. Yeah, and it's still going strong now. And it's been amazing I led it for like 7 years. And then, you know, we've had other women leading it and doing all sorts of wonderful things, you know, setting up all sorts of amazing initiatives. And it's wonderful, you know, like one of the things that's nice as you kind of get a bit older is that you see things that you started, you know, like, so I don't really have anything to do with BCS Women now. I mean, I chat to people, and some of them are my friends, and, you know, we interact on different projects and stuff, but I'm not a day-to-day BCS Women committee or anything person now. So it's wonderful to see all these women doing all this incredible stuff. And I started it, but I don't have to do anything now, you know, and it's just going. It's just a lovely feeling, you know, that there's various things that I've started which are still going now, and I don't have to do anything.
It does sound like when you started BCS Women, it was kind of like a lot of women wanted something that you wanted as well, but you were the person who actually actively did something about it. And once you did, like, your opinion was shared with so many, it just needed one person to like take that jump, you know. And it's the same, I think it's the same with the Bletchley Park campaign as well. You know, you were the one to create a petition and send that out and kind of speak truth to power. And I think that's really good takeaway, actually, that if you just feel strongly about something, you should just do it, and the numbers will follow if people are passionate the same way you are.
And also, you know, maybe, I mean, it's not how it worked that time, but like, I find other people that are passionate about it as well, which is a lot easier to do with social media now. So like with Bletchley Park, you know, I kind of sent the first email around asking people to kind of support the campaign, and then when there was like 100 people and then 1,000 people, you know, you really realize that you're onto something. And you know, it kind of gives you the energy to keep going. And then, you know, lots of other people got involved and did all sorts of different things, like a comedy fundraiser. Someone walked to Everest Base Camp to raise money for Bletchley Park. So, you know, I think I quite like solving problems that I see, and I quite like getting things started. But you know, but then you need other people to come in and do stuff. You know, it's not just me at all. I might have started things.
Absolutely, and it goes back to what you were just saying earlier about having like a diverse group of people. Like, although you started the idea, I'm sure you've had so many people help give ideas and interact and make BCS Women like what it is today and improve it. And that only comes from collaboration and communicating with new people. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. So if how would somebody get involved with BCS Women? If they had just heard about it today, or they've just seen it somewhere, how could they get involved?
I think, well, they're on Twitter and they're online. So I think you could just Google BCS Women and get in touch with them if you want to join.
Great, awesome. And I think that is all I wanted to discuss with you today. Thank you so much. I had a really, yeah, it was really interesting. I think we share similar opinions about like Bletchley Park, Ada Lovelace, how shocking it is, how little contribution is, how little the contribution has been recognised, things like that. But I see change, and I think that's going to continue to happen. But yeah, so a quick message about Talking Tech for those who are interested as to what Talking Tech is. So the Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, the UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy of Youth, and it's in support of Equals, which is the global partnership for gender equality in the digital age. BCS Women and the University of Warwick are very pleased to be a partner on this session today. And the goals of the series is to interest and inspire girls and younger women with information about the range of ICT careers that can be had, bring before a broader audience to some of the role model women in tech and share information about their career and journeys and their work. We also want to offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals, showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, and provide girls and young women in tech with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote girls in tech organisation with which they're involved in, and promote it to a broader international audience. Once again, thank you so much, Sue, for making the time today.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm delighted that the ITU is doing this in partnership with all those organisations. It's such important work.
Brilliant. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you, everyone, as well. Have a great day.